How's it going, everyone? Jesus here, aka Tyrant Dominus, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. Honestly, Anchor is a very enjoyable platform to be on, listen on, and just a joy to be a part of this community. Anchor, come check us out. And welcome back to Reactioncast. It's your host, Jesus, aka Tyrant Dominus. Here, this time around, we're going to be talking about a podcast. The podcast we're going to be talking about this time around is Dungeons Daddies. Dungeons Daddies is not a BDSM podcast. Instead, it's a D&D podcast about four dads from our world flung into the Forgotten Realms on a quest to rescue their four sons. That took me like a dozen takes to get. Oh, God. But yeah, Dungeons Daddies is pretty much a rowdy, horny, violent podcast for grown-ups, for sure. It's one of those, like, shows for sure. Let's see, how many... I think there's, like, nearly, like... You got nearly 68 episodes. They're running roughly an hour, so you have a good chunk of content there of a very interesting tale. So let's kind of introduce some of the people that are on the cast. We got Matt Arnold, who plays Daryl Wilson, this very very casual kind of coach dad. Matt plays him very like traditional, because everyone plays kind of to their kind of the stereotype, and it works really well. And Matt's character Daryl is kind of this very, very like sportsy, Christian-y, and his dad trying to get all together with his son, which his son's name is blanking on me at the moment, because I literally finished listening to the finale again recently. Why can't I? It'll come to me in a moment. Then you got Will Campos, who plays Henry Oak. I'm not gonna try to do Will's like intro, but he's like this crunchy, munchy, like Birkenstock wearing nature druid dad. He's basically kind of your hippie dad, and he's kind of dealing with these wild child Larkin Sparrow. He's one of the few like magic users, so it's interesting when you're like the concept of people from our world, especially like dads, going into this like fantasy world. So it's interesting to see a magic user, like see how they handle stuff. And then you have Beth May, who plays Ron Stampler, an emotionally detached stepfather, which is an interesting way to... I don't know how much prep, because I haven't listened to any of their like behind the scenes stuff, so it was interesting to see them introduce that style of father. And I would say Ron is one of my favorite characters as far as character development throughout the entire series. And overall, Beth May's way that she handled him is really fun. And then we have Freddie Wong, who plays Glenn Close, a rock and roll cover dad, this kind of like laid back, like weed smoking. He's kind of your like chill dad. You're like that cool dad, kind of wearing like this leather jacket style. Kind of, you can imagine that. And then you have Anthony Birch, who is the DM, everyone else's daddy. So when always reviewing like D&D style shows and the like, you always have to remember there's always one more individual besides the guests. They have, it's what I like sometimes about D&D shows overall is when you have guest stars, more so on like podcasts. Unlike when I review like Dimension 20 shows, where it's like a set series, podcasts have a little bit more leeway where they can have guests come on and do things of the like. But there is that one hidden member that is the dice, because they are the ones that help like make the story what it is a little bit. It makes things great, bad, or average. And so we always have to take that into account when doing this, because like there's multiple times in this series, noting that there's like nearly 68 episodes in this thing, that you have to take into consideration when like thinking about this show, because from beginning to end, the way everyone plays their characters, in the beginning, it's fun to see them kind of go into these some of the stereotypes that are what their characters are, like the coach dad, the laid back dad, like this, like not buffoon, but this like Ron was more like a sad soul. That's the best way I can put it. And then like the hippie dad. But for the most part, what ends up happening is, something happens. They get flung into the Forgotten Realms. They lose their sons on the way to a soccer game, and on the way to try to find who kidnapped all their sons, they try to do stuff. I'm like, there's no big spoilers here. There's a lot. I'll try to minimize spoilers as much as I can, because for the most part, this is a very fun series to listen through from beginning to end, for sure. This in the beginning, it's pretty fun, enjoyable to listen to, but with all shows like this, like these tabletop games that are made for audiences, they do a good job throughout episodes to build out their characters, to have us care a little bit more, giving them more depth and dimensions, to the point when you get through probably, I would feel, as I'm scrolling through here, I'm trying to just see a few episodes here. Where did I kind of like feel close to them? Because it's pretty just chaotic, because I'm remembering correctly, a few of them weren't like active like D&D players or just tabletop players, and they were just in it for the fun. I think it was more like, for me, around episode 7, so 7 hours in, which is a lot to ask for when it takes me like 3 episodes of a regular television show for me to get pulled in. But the way I was like absorbing the show was while working, so that's what makes podcasts a little bit easier to enjoy, is like I can have it while I'm doing something, and my only attention is to my work and what I'm hearing. And luckily, my work doesn't have to like dip in when I'm to what I'm listening to. So I can focus on work and the show. So it's always been enjoyable. But everyone's like very, very well put together characters. A very fun cast of NPCs that Anthony brings to the world. Some memorable ones for sure that are just so wacky and crazy. For sure, one of it's been some of the best characters that do have their own development in this world, because that's what makes world building interesting when it comes to these types of shows, because you have to make it kind of believable that these dads don't know what the heck's happening. They're kind of in this like medievalish kind of world. It's one of those theater of the mind things that they do a good job in, and Anthony does a good job describing at times. But the comedic factor of the entire cast just brings this joyous moments that livens up even some of the darker tones to kind of lighten it up. Because for sure there are some feels when it comes to certain scenes, because these are dads who lost their sons and they're trying to get them back. For as much as some of the chaos and shenanigans happens, it is like dads like seriously looking for their kids and handling a lot of other issues, because it's a family, their wives, things like that, and more insanity that comes along, that comes with being in a magical forgotten realm. I would say from beginning to end, it was a blast. And knowing that there is a season 2, so look forward to a season 2. And currently what's being done right now is like a mini season called Fetch Quest, which that's been a joy at the moment as far as this recording for my review. Episode 1 is currently out, so I'm looking forward to, I believe it's a 3-parter. But talking about just season 1 of Dungeons Daddies, my experience from beginning to end, outside of like Talking Dads and everything, because I've only heard 2, because I was like, this was a show that started back in early 2019, and I didn't get into it until probably end of 2019. So I had a chunk of episodes. This is one of those things where it's like a chunk of episodes. It's great to listen through to get this momentum started, to then listen episode per episode and just anticipate. For sure, now that the entire season's out, it's a great listen. But there is one thing I would say is like they did a very fun alt that I don't know how they handle it when it comes to like podcasting, but they did like an alteration to stuff, and it was like, wow, fun, crazy. And it's like, okay, so that's how they handled situations. Sure. And mostly from an editing standpoint, from my point of view, it's like, how would you do that? But for sure, the cast, wonderful. As I was trying to find a little bit more information, as I was trying to gather my thoughts for the review, I've never actually seen a photo of any of these individuals. When I went to the site, that was the first time I've ever seen their actual physical faces. They're all beautiful people. But yeah, it's always interesting when listening to a show that you've never seen an individual's face, and you have only the picture of their character in your mind. Outside of Beth May, like you know, it's Beth May is not Ron Sampler, but there is I'll say that there is a Beth May canonically in the world, so it makes it fun to hear things like that. So I never really had a picture of Beth May in my head. And mostly with this group of individuals, they had such a fun chemistry that made every interaction even better. Some of the, like, there's really not really much to say negatively, but there are certain like aspects of some characters and the way it flowed that just didn't. Sometimes it was just the rolls of the dice that just made either characters go like crazy OP, or it just didn't handle some situations. I would say like Freddie Wong's character with his relationship with Nick. There are times because he's playing like this, like he's supposed to be playing like this cool dad who lets his son do whatever he wants, kind of. And like from an outsider perspective, like every other dad's like, yeah, you should try to set more boundaries and stuff like that, right? But every other dad is handling their own kids like problems and stuff like that. And it's interesting to note, like one of my thoughts would have been with Ron and his kid. And then how Ron handled his own like issues, and it's interesting how this show just did a number for a lot of people, and for sure it hit in the feels for me, and it's worth the whole entirety for everyone to just go through it. Like, enjoy the ride and look forward to season 2 and seeing what more shenanigans will play, because it's interesting to see where they started, who the cast themselves started, to who they are now as individuals and as characters, because they've grown so much, minus the weird time fluctuation shit that apparently this world has. But it's fun to see characters improve, characters build upon each other, and just how like players try to go against the DM here. They do a fun job going against Matt a lot, and it's very fun. There's a few things as far as like the entirety of the show, like of Dungeons Daddies. They do a fun thing that other actual plays I haven't seen done, is like these like fun like intros that kind of recap what happened in previous episodes. They're all fun nods to different things like shows and musics, and it's very fun. The score and soundtrack to this is fantastic. Like shout out to, I believe it's Freddie Wong who does a lot of the audio work on this, so beautiful work on that. Like it makes some of the moments hit a little harder when you have such a beautiful score to certain scenes, and just the story that was laid out was fun, and you just never know what can happen when it comes to games like this. And like I said, it's always that hidden member of the dice that can make some fights very, very challenging, or make players just go hog wild and just be these like heroes and champions. But yeah, wonderful show. There's not much I'm gonna say spoiler wise. Like, it's just a fun show. It's a solid, for me, it's a solid 9 out of 10 actual play podcast. It's really well done. It's a bit of a rocky start, but it's at the end they find themselves, and the chemistry they have built out as far as the casts as individuals and as just the people in game, and these fun roles that they play as fathers and their children, and just fun meetup with all these wonderful NPCs. So wonderful show. Highly recommend you guys listen to him. Dungeons Daddies. Remember, just go check him out. It's a wonderful show. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Let me know what you guys thought of Dungeons Daddies. Did you guys enjoy it? What do you guys think of the finale? What kind of dad do you think you would want to play in an actual play podcast? But yeah, until next time, see ya.